Players are setting up. Actually,
We're
there's
already
Azul.
on.
And there we go. So Azul starting two Tapu Leles. Plays an Ultra Ball, is getting a Bridget off of the Lele that he played from the Ultra Ball. Is going to get the Bridget.
So we see him searching. We're probably going to see him getting some Zoroas and some Wimpods for this deck.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the best play that you want to get at this point, especially against the Gardevoir deck that Kyle is playing, is that you want to get a couple Zoros down, maybe a Wimpod, otherwise you can just go for the full-on Zoroark effect.
But we do see him go for 3 Zoroas here.
Yep.
Interesting play. I would have expected at least 1 Wimpod on this.
I would have expected it too, although I think that this play is fine at this point. I know that his Golisopod line is a little bit thinner in this deck than most decks usually are, only running the 2 Golisopod and the 3 Wimpods.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he's just kind of saving it for later, saying, oh, I can take out some Ralts with some Riotous Beatings later on.
Mm-hmm. So we see him pass. We go on to Kyle, who plays down a Zoroa from hand, currently looking to see his other options.
Yeah, I can kind of see his hand. It doesn't look like he has too much. I think that's a Tapu Lele in hand, or maybe it's a Gardevoir.
He has a Mallow.
Ooh.
It's Cynthia.
Oh, there's a Cynthia, one of those new cards from the Ultra Prism set. Lets you shuffle in, draw 6 cards. Really good card that came out of Ultra Prism, I think.
It is. It's actually a reprint of Professor Oak's new theory from way back in the day of Heart Gold Soul Silver.
Indeed. Oh, the good old days. So, just in different form, just in Diamond and Pearl fashion. So, like we said, Kyle's going to go ahead and get 6 cards. I think off of these 6, you kind of want to get a couple Zoroas down. I think that that's important that you eventually get those Zoroarks and start doing some beating.
You got to do some trades. You got to set up. We do see 1 Route and 1 Zoroa hit the field.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I want to note that I think is really cool is Kyle is playing the Psychic-type Ralts. We saw a match earlier with Gardevoir where they were playing the Fairy-type Ralts. Maybe Kyle was expecting, maybe a little bit more of maybe like Espeon Garbodor, things that are weak to Psychic, and so being able to smack for 20, even putting a Choice Band on, does 50, times the 2 from weakness, could be 100 on, say, like a Buzzwole or something like that.
I also think it has to do with the fact that a lot of people were thinking that there was going to be a Metal Resurgence.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Ultra Prism set had so much metal, whether that was Magnezone, Solgaleo, Prism Star.
So we're back onto Azul here. He has traded a Wimpod away.
Oh, wow.
And currently has 3 Zoroarks.
Currently 3 Zoroarks. I mean, hey, he's 5-0. Clearly something's working. So yeah, I guess I can see him sort of training away that Golisopod. I think he kind of realizes that eventually that might just be like really hard Gardevoir fodder, especially being that, Kyle is playing the max potions.
Right. We do see him trade that Enhanced Hammer away. It gets him the Parallel City, and then just goes straight for the end to refresh his hand, as well as Kyle's.
Wow, that's a really good turn from Azul, man. He got everything down that he really needed to. So, yeah, like you said, he's going to play the end from here. I think that Azul from here, I think he's content. I think he just wants to try and find an energy and start attacking, really. I think that's all he can hope for at this point.
He has his engine set up. It's ready to go. Trades all out.
Right, and there we go.
We do see the DCE drawn.
Yeah, does see the DC. Now, the problem is, does he have a way to get the Lele, the Tapu Lele GX out of the active?
He does run 1 Floatstone, but did he draw it?
But did he draw it? He has an Ultra Ball.
Do we see him go for the Wimpod here? I feel like at this point you kind of just get your Wimpod out. He has discarded 1 for the record.
Correct, yep.
We do see the Wimpod drop down to the bench.
There we go. Wimpod comes down. That'll set up for a Golisopod later in the game, which is really good for him. It's a really efficient attacker, especially against Gardevoir that relies on having a lot of energy, and Golisopod uses 1 energy. Amazing.
Fantastic. So we see him shuffling up. Where do you think this is going to go? Do we see this Tapu Lele come out of the active?
I think it's going to depend. I believe he's only used 1 trade so far, if I remember correctly. Oh, no, looks like he's just going to pass. Maybe I was wrong on the trade count. My apologies. So we are on to Kyle.
He does get a Zoroark down, so he can start trading and getting everything. Evo Soda for what I will assume will be a Kirlia or possibly another Zoroark.
I could see a second Zoroark because, I mean, at this point, I don't think he plays any Kirlia in his deck. So I think he's going to be.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think he's going to be more so digging for maybe like the rare candies with the Zoroarks. But that tradability lets you get rid of a card, you get 2 new cards. It's really good. Really efficient way to draw into rare candy. So yep.
There's a reason why we see it in just about every deck.
Yes, absolutely. So, yep, there goes the Zoroark. Wouldn't be surprised to see him trade. Now, what does he trade away? Or does he play a supporter before that is another good question as well. He is eyeing the end.
But he does go for the Enhanced Hammer to get rid of that crucial DCE on that Zoroark.
Very good play on Kyle's part. I think he realizes that Azul's been having a tough time getting that Lele out of the active, and so being able to get rid of that energy just puts, more pain on pressure. Like, oh, hey, have fun getting both. So
Exactly. But we do know that Azul is playing 4 Guzmas, so there was that option that he could Guzma out of that.
absolutely. I think that the Guzma play it's a little weird at this point, just because.
Right.
You really want to.
It's a last-ditch effort.
Yeah, I think at this point, like at least in this matchup, I feel like you'd probably want to be getting rid of the Ralts because those are what gonna evolve into Gallade, Gardevoir GX, the things that are going to do the most damage to the deck.
Right. But if he can't get that Lele out.
Right. Exactly.
Lele starts are not the best for this deck, especially
not at
when
all.
you're only running 1 Float Stone.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see. Looks like Kyle drew a pretty decent amount of stuff off of that, and do see it looks like a puzzle of time in his hand. I don't think he's discarded too many resources, so I don't think it'd be crucial for him to be able to use that.
He isn't. We do see the Lele traded away for 2 new cards.
Yep. And he did get a double colorless energy off of that trade, which could be good if he has the pieces to be able to put out, say, a Gallade or a Gardevoir.
But we do just see him pass back over to Azul.
All right.
We do go for a trade from a Bridget.
So yeah, I would not be surprised to see him use all 3 trades before that he's able to attack and all of that. I think if you're Azul at this point, you really want to dig for a Floatstone, or like a Guzma even. I think being able to Guzma on that Zoroark GX that Kyle has on the bench that has the energy, if you want to start chipping away at that, I think that would be absolutely crucial so that Azul can sort of get ahead in the game.
Does not look like he has drawn that second DCE that he needs.
Ugh.
He's sitting on a thick hand.
He has a Guzma in hand, but the problem is he just doesn't have energy.
Right.
Which is not good for him, and that's just a pass from Azul. Oh boy. So, here's something interesting. Kyle has a very interesting card at the top of his hand.
Mallow.
For those of you at home who don't know, Mallow lets you search your deck for any 2 cards and put those cards on top of your deck after shuffling the deck.
Yes.
Which works really well with trade because how many cards does trade draw you?
2.
So you can essentially get any 2 cards you want.
We did see him trade away a Cynthia, which is rather interesting because it's hand refresh.
Yeah, I think if you're Kyle at this point, you'll probably be playing that Mallow at some point because you do want to get either a Gardevoir or Gallade on point.
You are a psychic type. Look at that Mallow come right down.
I am, thank you. I am Mallowed up. So he's going to play the Mallow, search for 2 cards. Looks like he eyed the Field Blower and the Rare Candy. I can see the Field Blower just because the parallel is kind of hurting him right now.
You do want more than 2 Zoroarks at times. Being able to go through your deck swiftly,
I guess,
and thoroughly.
Potentially. So we're going to see from there. Going to use trade number 1 eventually. I think he's just deciding what he wants to ditch. He's eyeing the Guzma. I don't know how I feel about that. There's the Zoroark that goes down from the trade.
You see a Rare Candy as well as a Fairy Energy in hand, but we do not see a way to get a Gardevoir out.
I thought I saw a Gardevoir in hand. Maybe I'm seeing things.
So we do see him blower away the Parallel City to bring his own Parallel City in, reducing Azul's bench to a pitiful 3.
I think this is the second time we've seen this on stream today. This must be some popular tactic as of right now.
Oh, it's a fantastic tactic.
Perfect. All right, so it looks like Kyle just attached the Fairy and retreated that Ralts. Kind of identifies that he doesn't want a massive GX threat in the active and have it get damaged yet.
Right. And with that, this Lele is not moving anywhere.
Right, so you might as well start chipping at it.
Right. It's an easy 2 prizes at that point. Azul goes for another trade, and another trade. Discarding a Grass Energy as well as a Bridget.
Yeah. So I did see a double colorless energy peeking out of Azul's hand, so if he has access to a Guzma, this could be really good. Is he gonna... Oh man, another parallel? I hope so.
They only play 1 parallel each.
Oh, drat. Puzzles. Please. Alright, he does get the Tapu Lele GX down using that Wonder Tag to...
Acerola.
Actually, Acerola, that is another good card that can get Tapu Lele out of the active.
fantastic since it has damage already. That Acerola will scoop it right back up into hand,
Right.
allowing him to use it again to get another supporter should he need to next turn.
And it's great because, he needed a way to get the Lele out of the active anyway, so it's kind of like a really good trade, He's able to,
It's a very good trade.
Oh, stop. It's a really good trade. He's able to Acerola it up, make sure that there's no damage potential on the board for that. Oh,
Interesting play.
Max Potion, actually.
Max Potions, and went for the Guzma.
Oh, man, he fooled us. All right, so he does go for the Guzma. It's just going to go ahead and use Rite of Speeding for 100 with that Gardevoir's resistance.
There is a reason why Azul is 5-0.
That is true. Very good. So, on to Kyle's turn. Don't seem doing much. I mean, he's looking through his discard pile right now, kind of identifying his options and all that right now.
My guess is that he possibly has 2 puzzles, seeing what he can possibly get.
Absolutely, and I do see those peeking out of his hand, so that is definitely what he's going to be going for.
We do also see him contemplating either trading this energy, which he does.
Yeah, I can see the contemplation for that. Just depends on his hand, really. I mean,
Right.
From what I could tell, the certain things that he wants, there are so many pieces that he would probably want right now. Like, you could, grab a draw supporter like Cynthia, Professor Sycamore. You could get any of that.
Right.
Whereas, like, he also needs some pieces to maybe get a Gallade online, which would include a rare candy.
But we do see the puzzles come down. He grabs an Enhanced Hammer as well as the Parallel City.
And he also just played Guzmos, so actually this is a really great play on Kyle's. And
Wow.
he realizes that Golisopod is the biggest threat and the biggest attacker in this matchup, so he wants to get rid of those ASAP.
We see him play down a Floatstone, which will allow him to retreat should he need to. And we go on to Azul's turn. We do see the DCE peeking out of his hand on top there.
Yeah.
So he does have the ability to attack, but with the option of only having 3 things on the bench due to that Parallel City,
That's
not very helpful.
It's not a good trade with the other Zork because the other Zork is doing at least 100 right now, assuming that Azul can't get another parallel out in some way, shape, or form. But, Azul's only doing 60, so by the time that he attacks, like, Kyle's going to be taking a big commanding lead.
He does end up trading away his lone Floatstone.
I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're hungry for resources, like, you kind of have to pick and choose. Like,
Right.
You're already kind of down a little bit, like, if it's really not going to matter that much in the end.
Mm-hmm.
So, going to see him trade away the Cynthia there. Kind of identifying, like, I don't want 6 cards. I want 12. So, he's peeking at the DCE. But at this point, like, I mean, you obviously want to attack, but is attacking for 60 worth it at this point? Is really the big question. There are so many pros and cons to it. Like, you can get some damage on the Zora. Oh, there's actually a choice band there.
There's the choice band.
Going to be doing a nice 90.
He ends up field blowing away that Parallel, allowing him to refill his bench if he has the beans.
And he also got rid of the Floatstone, too, which means
Yes.
Kyle will have to discard energy if he wants to get that Zorak out of the active without use of a supporter. So I think if you're Kyle at this point, you want to find Gallade.
Right.
Because Gallade is such a good attacker against this Zork Lysopod deck, just because you're hitting the Zork for weakness.
Right.
And also, the only way that they can knock it out in terms of Azul's deck is by using that Cross and Cut GX attack.
Exactly.
So,
plus, it's only a 1 prize attacker. It's really great.
It's got a good ability, it's got a good attack, and its art looks cool. What could you ask for?
It's a fantastic card. One of my favorites, actually, of the format.
Yes, absolutely. It's just so nice and it's so fun. We're actually going to see him play this Tapu Lele here.
Searching through his deck, seeing what supporters he has. It's looking pretty thin, though.
Yeah, all I'm seeing in there is an N and a Bridget, so...
And a Mallow? That's a Mallow.
That's a Mallow? Okay, gotcha. I could not entirely see it, so... I think the Mallow is fine at this point. I mean, actually, that could be really good if you can get Rare Candy and Gallade in some fashion of double colorless energy.
He ends up going for a Fairy Energy, and I was not able to see what else.
Yeah, I can see the Fairy Energy play being really good, too, if he maybe wants to go for a Gardevoir play, maybe knocking out that Zorak with the Gardevoir means.
I have a feeling his Gallade is prized. I did not see it in that deck search. He only plays 1.
Alright, so looks like he's going to go ahead, attach that Fairy Energy, and it looks like...
Field Blowers that choice band right out of play.
Yeah, I don't need you. Bye. So now, Rite of Speeding is only going to do 40 because of Gardevoir's resistance.
Right.
So...
Looks like there's the possibility of some puzzles coming back.
Absolutely.
Possibly debating on those cards right on top. Also just checking what he has.
It looks like he's going for a Twilight GX, actually.
Ah.
So, going to go for the Twilight GX, shuffle a lot of cards in. So, I saw Mallows go in, Max Potions, Fairy Energies, Rare Candies. Everything. Perfect.
It's one of the great GX attacks, actually.
So now if you're Azul, you're kind of like, oh boy, how do I beat this? There are still ways, though, I think. If you can get a Golisopod online, I think he can apply some fast pressure against Kyle, which will force Kyle to maybe, dig for the Max Potion or dig for an Acerola or something like that. So
we do see that Golisopod come online with a Guzma come out for that injured Zoroark.
And if you can find a Choice Band, I think that's knockout, if I can see the numbers correctly. Or, nope, it's enough on its own.
It is knockout on its own.
With that gold Grass Energy.
So pretty.
I wish I had Gold Energy. I love Gold Energy. Anywho.
Back to our Gardevoir
the actual
backup.
Importance.
You see him trade. The good thing about that Twilight GX last turn is the fact that not only did he get those resources back, he thickened that deck. It was getting very thin. One of the issues with Zoroark decks is that they run fast and they run out fast.
Right. Yeah, so it looks like Kyle just used Secret Spring to attach a Fairy Energy, attach Choice Band, and just kind of content to slap for 120 with Infinite Force. Now, I think if you're Azul, I don't know, this is really tough. Like, I mean, you want to attack with the Golisopod, but you don't have another Wimpod on board, so you're not able to, evolve and maybe get another first impression off.
He was paralleled twice, so
Correct.
A lot of his Pokemon are in the discard. And looking at this list, I don't see any ways of him getting things back beyond those puzzles.
Right, exactly. And so I think that this is a really tough spot for Azul because, first off, he can't get much back without being able to get those puzzles, and from what we can tell, he hasn't been able to hit those efficiently yet. And, even if he is able to heal the Golisopod, whether that's Acerola or getting it out of there with a Guzma or something.
Right.
So looks like he is just going to go for the Guzma play, bring up the Zoroark, just get some chip damage on it at this point.
Right.
So I think that this is a fine play for what Azul can work with right now. Oh, that's a good card. Mew EX.
Mew EX is one of my favorite cards that has made a comeback.
I love that card. And it's actually really good. It kind of threatens Kyle, like, hey, if you get a Gallade out, I'm just going to one-shot you.
Right.
Because Mew has that versatile ability, lets you copy any attack in play as long as you have the necessary energy. So Azul can copy Riotous Beating. Heck, he can copy Sensitive Blade if he wants to.
That's right. It is a versatile card. It is worth noting that Kyle also only plays one Float Stone, so that chip damage is pretty important since that Zoroark is going to need an energy or a supporter to get out of the active position.
Right, and now that I'm looking at Kyle's list a little more, I don't see any Acerolas. I just see Guzmas and just the one Float Stone. So really, and I'm pretty sure both his Guzmas are in the discard. Actually, he shuffled one back with
He did shuffle one back in with Twilight.
So that's really his only out at this point. He is... I don't know. I feel like you need to get it out of the active because this Zoroark is going to go down, and you need to try and find a way so that you can either preserve that or maybe even heal it with Max Potion or something like that. So I think at this point, he's going to need to get that Gardevoir in the active or something attacking. If he has the means for it, I would try to Guzma the Golisopod GX, just knock that out. Get rid of it.
Exactly. It has, it looks like 120 damage on it right now. Very easily in KO range for most Pokemon.
Yeah. Oh. All right, so he Ultra Balled for the Lele, and he's going to get the Guzma. So I think this will be the play that we are going to see.
Do you see that Golisopod come up?
It's like I'm a fairy.
And we do see big bad Guardy with 2 energy and a Choice Band.
Yep.
Ready to knock this Golisopod out.
And there we go. Infinite Force is going to take the knockout there on that Golisopod GX. So now...
Kyle up 3 prizes to Azul's 4.
Right. So now at this point, Azul's got a Mew EX, which can copy Riotous Beating.
Yep.
Energy Drive. And that's about it.
Right.
He could copy Slap if he wanted to, or whatever the attack is called from Ralts. But then he has Zoroarks that are going to hit Gardevoir for resistance. And so at this point, this is just a rough patch for Azul. I think you kind of want to see if you can get out another one pot or something like that.
Right. Or, honestly, I would start thinking about Game 2.
That is another contemplation as well. Sometimes, we will see a lot of players scoop games relatively early just because they're thinking my board state isn't really good. Maybe I should just go to the next game and get ready.
Because we are getting close to that halfway point in time where...
Absolutely. The players don't know that, but, sometimes when you're playing a game, you can sort of feel...
Us casters are lucky with our little timers.
Thanks, technology. So, So yeah, Azul's just kind of thinking, like, he's playing an Ultra Ball, it looks like right now.
He is.
If he has a Wimpod available, I'd probably just go for that. Try to maybe hopefully build up a Golisopod.
If I recall correctly, he might have one, but that deck is very thin.
Yeah, so plays the double pulse all the time. There you go. Wimpod and Grass Energy. So he's definitely going to go for that. So I think at this point, Azul's going to want to put that down, maybe try and save it on the bench. Would you try to go for a Riot Speeding this turn if you can get the Zoric in the active? I don't know.
I'm not sure because I think it's going down.
Yeah, exactly. So we do see the Field Blower. Going to get rid of the Parallel City and the Choice Band.
At this point, we do see the Guzma.
There you go.
I do feel like that Field Blower was just a little bit too late.
A little bit too late, but Azul did just take a knockout, and it looks like he has 2 prizes left.
It is.
So this is relatively close from the poor-ish setup that we've seen.
That's the one thing about Azul's deck. It looks like it's down and out at times, but it's not. It comes back miraculously.
Yeah, no, this is incredible.
It trades prizes very well.
Indeed it does. So I think from here, Kyle is probably going to want to focus on getting rid of that Wimpod. He has 3 prizes left, so if he knocks the Wimpod out, then he's going to be down to 2, and then all it'll take is just a Zoric knockout.
Right.
And then voila. Whereas...
Ooh, we do see the DCE come down. 4 energy onto that giant Gardevoir.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I just noticed that Kyle has to be wary about is that he doesn't have any Zoric down. He can't trade at all.
He's trying to build up that one Zorua on the bench.
Yeah. I don't know. It might be all too late for Zorua. We might not know. So we do see the Golisopod come down, I think. He's debating.
He knows. He needs to get that
He
Zoroark
needs to.
out of the active.
Yep. So, gonna go ahead, use First Impression for 120 damage.
It's a very solid attack.
So, Kyle needs to find a way to get Gardevoir out of the active, healed, something.
Right.
Otherwise, it is gonna go down next turn. Probably. It's gonna depend on what Azul has
More
in hand.
than likely.
But if he has some form of energy, it may be all over. But, you never know. I don't know where Kyle could find another double colorless energy or something, take the knockout that way.
Exactly.
So we'll have to wait and see. It looks like he's just going to go ahead and retreat.
And bring out the baby routes.
Oh, boy.
The sacrificial routes.
So
but we do see that was Azul's last card drawn in his deck.
So if he doesn't have a way to recycle his deck...
It's game over.
That's over
next
because...
turn for Azul.
Yeah, because if you can't draw a card at the beginning of your turn, you lose.
It's one of our win conditions.
One of the beautiful win conditions. So, oh, there we go. And he has the end. All right.
Just shuffle your hand together and make it a deck.
Perfect. I love it.
Fantastic.
So, gonna end Kyle down to 3 cards, and Azul 2, I believe. But if there were energies involved, well, I don't know. Could see it going either way. Looks like that's 3 cards for Azul. He's gonna draw 2. Oh my gosh. The suspense is killing me.
This is very close.
This is incredibly close. Oh, okay. Looks like Azul scoops. Yeah, I think he was ending because he had 3 cards left, 2 prizes, and he needed to draw 2 so that he wouldn't, deck himself out and such. And that last card was a double colorless energy. He needed to attack. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go on to game 2. So Kyle won that first game. Kyle won, right? I think so. I'm pretty sure. We'll get that fixed in due time. So I think going into the next game, I think that Azul wants to capitalize more on the Golisopods. I think the Golisopod's a really good attacker in this matchup, and I think if he can capitalize on that.
Agreed. I think those early parallel cities honestly hinder the deck very hard. And so what we need to see is if those parallels come down, we need to see that Field Blower out and getting rid of it, because if you can't set up your Zoroarks, there's no draw power to your decks.
Right, absolutely.
You have your supporters, you have your Cynthias and all of that, but getting those extra trades off, 3 trades in a turn is unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. So I could see maybe if the turn 1 was like a bridge, maybe going for like a mix of Wimpods and Zoroas as opposed to that last game he just went straight for Zoroas.
Right.
I mean, it started to pay off, but at the same time you will want to get some Golisopods build up because that's going to be your big attacker against Gardevoir.
Right.
And that's really your only means to being able to knock out that Gallade effectively.
And then being able to cycle them with the Acerolas and all the other options, getting them in and out of actives. It's a very tricky deck for Gardevoir to hit because you only have 1 energy on compared to other decks that are like 3 or 4 energies.
Right.
Where it just goes, boom, there goes the Gardevoir.
Yeah.
It just goes nuts.
Yeah, and I think if you're Kyle at this point, don't prize the Gallade. I assume that it was prized, otherwise we probably would have
Procasting
seen it.
tip: do not prize Gallade.
Ding, ding, ding. So he would probably want to get Gallade out at this point, just because it's such an efficient attacker in this matchup.
It just wrecks through Zoroarks.
It hits Zoroarks for one hit KOs.
Exactly.
It puts a lot of pressure on Golisopod, because like I mentioned earlier, you have to first impression it to knock it out.
Exactly. And it has that ability premonition where you get to look at the top 5 and rearrange them in any order you want.
Which is really good with Zoroark, because like you can just rearrange, get those two.
Trade again, get two more.
Trade.
And then you just
Perfect.
keep going. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see this match. I also want to see BBX come into play, because that's going to be a really good Gallade hitter at this point as well.
Because it does hit for ×2 weakness.
×2 weakness.
We usually see it in counters for Buzzwole, but it works fantastic for those Gallades that are really pesky.
Mm-hmm. These players are smart, must have seen the resurgence in Gardevoir, especially with Zoroark. Gardevoir doing really well over in Oceania last year. Or not last year. I wish last year. Last week.
Yeah, last week.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and kick it off to the match.
We do end up on Kyle's turn, it looks like. It doesn't look like anything really happened beyond Azul playing an N, getting a Float Stone onto that lone Zorua. An Ultra Ball has come down for a Lele with a Lele start, getting a Bridget to probably get out a good chunk of Zoruas as well as a route. There's going to be some sort of combination
Or
there.
lots of things, yes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe get like 2 Zoruas and a Ralts at this point, or 3 Zoruas.
Or he just goes straight out of the Azul playbook and goes for all 3.
Hey, he took a note from Azul. That's totally fine. So he's going to go ahead and get those 3 Zoroarks, which if he has the access to a lot of Zoroarks next turn, Zoroark GXs, he will have access to a lot of trades next turn.
Exactly. I actually don't hate the play, though it's something you haven't really seen a lot until this tournament, probably.
Right.
Where a lot of people would usually do 2 Zoroarks, 1 Ralts, or something else along those lines.
Right.
But being able to have 3 Zoroarks online, they're attackers, they're also able to trade and get your deck to just completely pop off.
And they're pretty decent attackers to boot, so.
Right, and especially against Azul's deck, they're very decent.
Yeah, so it looks like Kyle was the one to go second there. So I think that means that Azul won game, or lost game 1. But so it looks like this is Azul's second turn. So Azul finally gets a bridge at turn 2. So I would hope that he gets a Wimpod, although he may just go for the 3 Zoruas again.
Yes.
It's very possible. So I would like to see a Ride Speeding come down, but we do see the Wimpod.
We do see the Wimpod this time. I think that's a good play because, as you said, those Glycopods are the key here. They're the key to victory.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, just that it is the most hard-hitting card in the deck. It's the one that can put out the most damage at this point.
Right. And with that Floatstone on the Zoroark, we could see a Glycopod come out next turn with an energy and just start beating down.
Yeah. So we do see the trade there. Azul gets rid of a Guzma for it. If you found a DCE, I don't know if I would necessarily be going for a Ride Speeding it. Yeah, so he just passes.
Kyle gets a puzzle off of that. We see an Ultra Ball getting rid of a puzzle and it looked to be a Routes.
Darn puzzle. We hardly knew ye. So he's going to go ahead and play Ultra Ball. I think at this point you just get a Zoroark, obviously.
Obviously. You have to start trading right now. He's checking all of his cards, see what's prized. Hopefully not prizing that Gallade, but I did not see it.
Yeah. So, yep, there we go. See the Zoroark come down. Not really shocking at this point. I mean, like, I wouldn't be surprised to see a Ride Speeding come out eventually. Although, Energy Drive might be fine too. You never know. Exactly. Just depends on what he draws. So, going to go ahead and evolve.
Ooh,
Trades away a double colorless energy.
Ouch.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a necessary evil sometimes.
And he had to ditch that puzzle too, remember?
He did have to ditch the puzzle.
So that's going to be just one step harder for him to be able to retrieve that. So, okay. Like, I'm a psychic, I'm telling you.
The good news is he does play more than one puzzle, and he has options to get things back from his discard.
That's incredible. Wow. So anyway, back to the game. So Azul just evolved to Zorua into Zoroark GX. There's a lot more Zoroark GX here this weekend than I thought there would be, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think that a lot of people were really hyped about the metal decks, and also Buzzwole, like Enrock, was getting a lot of hype going into this weekend. So,
right.
But I mean, it's consistent, so it's not really surprising to see it here at the top tables.
Exactly. But, like, we honestly didn't see metal come out.
Really didn't. Yeah, I was seeing it the first couple rounds, and then it started to diminish at that
Yes.
point. So there's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of Zoroark, so...
And there's a lot of fire, more fire than I expected.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Whether that's just the straight Volcanion builds, or even like Turbo Ho-Oh.
Right.
Yep.
We do see Azul here get the second Zoroark out. He's debating on playing that Guzma or trading that Guzma. He trades the Guzma, draws an enhanced hammer, going straight for that Lele's double colorless energy.
So I like this play. He's putting the double colorless onto another Zoroark to be able to attack with that, have a
Right.
fresh one. And just like that,
Ace
my
of-
girl, Acerola, coming down, lets you pick up any Pokemon that has any damage counters on it, pick up all the energy, all the tools, all the Pokemon.
And we did see that floatstone, that one lone floatstone in his deck, go right back to his hand. Fantastic.
Perfect. So if on the off chance that Kyle does just try to put something in the active and make it stay there, he has that float stone.
Exactly.
So from here, we got Kyle doing his turn. He does put a Ralts down finally. I think it's interesting that he waited this long, but I can sort of see it as well because there's not really a Golisopod threat at this point.
Right. We
And
do-
especially not with it being pulled active.
Right.
Oh, just kidding. He's not attacking. Just passes.
But having that pod active means it can't become the active as a Golisopod, thus rendering it useless.
Yeah, Azul will need to find a Guzma probably. He does have that float stone, which is really nice. So if he can find discarding it.
We are discarding that floatstone. I'm
Oh,
not
man.
sure I liked discarding for that trade.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that either. He's gonna play the Evo Soda. It's a really good card. I really like it in these Stage 1 decks, like Jeffrey mentioned earlier. I think it's really good in these Stage 1 decks, especially when you just need that one Pokemon and don't want to discard a lot of resources
Yeah.
with Ultra Ball.
We do see the Lele come down. It looked like it was a Guzma.
Yeah,
that was a
that was-
very quick flip.
That was a Guzma. I mean, if I had excitement with a Guzma to be able to knock out that Tabulele, I would be like, oh, here I go. So,
Fair enough.
Trading card
looks like it was a
game
Guzma.
masters, you have 15 minutes.
So actually going for the Zoroark
Trading
here.
card game
I find that
masters,
interesting. I
you
think it makes
have
sense though because
15.
Kyle seems to have not drawn much at all, and getting rid of his one out drawing
Yeah,
it makes sense.
he has two Zorwas on the bench looking for those Zoroarks to start work.
So he'll need to find those Zoroarks ASAP. It looks like he has a Mallow in hand if I can see correctly. Or maybe it's a Cynthia.
Impressed that you can even see that.
I have eyes of steel. Well, no, that would mean I couldn't see. I have eyes of gold. There we go. I'm so sorry. So, yep, that's
It was
Mallow.
a Mallow.
See, I told you I'm a psychic. He's going to play that Mallow, get any two cards that he wants, puts them on the top of his deck,
You see
and
him
then draws them with trade.
exactly. So we see the Zoroark, and he's looking through everything else, seeing what he can grab.
He's eyeing the Max Potion, which is interesting. Now, that's really good because then it keeps it out of range of a knockout from either Zoroark or the Golisopod.
Right.
But at the same time, he needs to get stuff going.
Pokemon
So,
silent
if he can afford to do that, then by all means go for it.
It is an interesting play since he does not have an energy on that Zoroark, so he's not going to be discarding a crucial DCE here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, saw the two cards go down there. Definitely going to be drawing them a trade. So, yep. And it looks like he got another Zoroark GX. And it looks like an Evo Soda, actually. So, there we go. So, or no, not an Evo Soda. He's trading with the Evo Soda.
He traded
so
with the Evo Soda. Got
I got a
two
little too
cards.
excited. I'm sorry. So,
Seems to be a possible fairy energy.
it looks like it. Was that a double? No, that was a float stone.
It was a floatstone. We bring up the Tapu Lele GX.
I don't know if I
attach
like
the
that.
fairy and go for an energy
Oh,
drive.
goodness. Only 80, and that Zoroark's going to knock it out next turn, it looks like. Because it's doing 100 with Riotous Beating, and that Lele looks like it has 80 on it. So that Lele is, it is dead meat.
Azul goes for a trade with a DCE.
Ugh. That's definitely a really risky one. And threw away Parallel City as well. Absolutely huge. I think at this point you would want to try and limit Kyle, because he's already drawing dead.
Right,
So,
but you then Kyle could get rid of that Tapu Lele,
Right.
which would be easy two cards. Big
Yep.
prize right
easily.
there.
Or he could even get rid of the damaged Zoroark too if he really wanted to. That has like, I think 120 on it. So.
Right. So it wouldn't necessarily be the best play. We see the two Puzzle of Time played down.
For the two Guzma. Yep.
At-
Kyle's going to
for
take
the scoop.
So we are going to game 3 here. Oh boy. That was a really quick scoop. I think Kyle is really smart though. I think he notices like, hey, this round is probably going to be ending soon. I want enough time for a game 3.
I mean, they have been announcing here that there is 15 minutes left in rounds, which is a new thing I haven't seen at regionals recently.
I haven't seen that at regionals either yet. I think it's a really interesting tactic. I know that the community is mixed about it, but I think as time goes on, if it continues to happen.
There have been clocks at regionals where you've been able to see like timers
Yeah.
all around, but this is the first regionals where we've had actual announcements of 30 minutes, 15 minutes.
Right. So, I mean, we'll have to wait and see how the community reacts to it. Sometimes when new things, it is a shock for sure. So we'll just have to wait. Maybe if they do it at another regionals, maybe people will be, you know, at least a little prepared, if that makes sense.
Exactly, but
So-
it does allow players to scoop responsibly.
Yep.
They know that they need to go into game 3. Why wait?
Exactly. And that's perfect for this game. So Kyle just knew, I need enough time to go to game 3. I
Right.
need enough time to beat Azul.
Both these decks are fairly fast. They can play out a game in 15 minutes
Right.
easily. Going into game 3, what do these players need to do to clinch victory?
I think that for game 3, Kyle needs to definitely get out Zorix faster. I noticed that he wasn't actually getting the Zorix out really fast that past game. And I think that if he can get a couple out, he's going to be in a good spot because he'll have a consistent draw engine at that point, regardless of what he gets. I think he also needs to get a Ralts down on turn 1. I think that having that Gardevoir and Gallade is really good in this matchup.
We have not seen that Gallade yet.
I know. I really want to see it because it is the known Zoroark Shredder.
Right.
So that's my phrase. I'm sorry. So
I do enjoy it.
I do enjoy it too. Thank you. So I think from Azul, I think you kind of just want to do the same thing. I think you kind of want to get a Wimpod out a couple Zoroas and kind of go
Exert
from there.
that pressure.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think Azul's deck does really good at, exerting that quick pressure. Whereas, you know, Kyle's definitely is quicker because of Zoroark, but you can kind of, you know, take a little slower tempo with that Gardevoir.
Exactly.
So
But-
this should be a really exciting match. I'm hoping that also out of Azul that we'll be able to see more Acerola shenanigans. So, and we'll see if we are right here.
We do have Kyle Sabelhaus discarding a Rare Candy and a DCE to get that Tapu Lele with a Ultra Ball, getting the Bridget for the classic 3 Zoroa.
Oh, yes, the classic. See, I don't hate the play. I mean, I would have liked to see a Ralts down, but I think that this play
He
is
does
fine.
have a Routes down. It's in the active.
Oh, I'm stupid. Sorry. It kind of blended in with the mat. I'm like, oh, it's just the picture. So, on Azul's side, we see him go for the Tapu Lele. Bridget at the top of his deck.
I wonder
so
what it's going to be.
I see him playing the Tapu Koko. That's an interesting choice for sure.
It does have free retreat.
It does, and it's a nice way to soften up Pokemon as well.
That spread of 20 damage on each Pokemon is fantastic to soften up everything.
Yeah, I think
Hits
that's
those
actually
numbers.
really good. If Azul can get down 2 flying flips onto that Ralts, if it's eventually going to become a Gallade, you can hit it for a knockout after 2 flying flips with a first impression, which is really
Right.
good. Or even a Riotous beating. So it looks like Azul went for those 2 Zoroas in the Tapu Koko. I don't know if he has a way to get Well, he can get Wimpod out because of that Wimp out ability.
Right.
Has no retreat cost for the first turn. So if he does have a double colorless energy, I don't see why he wouldn't be going for a flying flip at this point.
It'd be a fantastic start. We
Oh,
see him attach a Grass Energy and just pass.
oh wow. All right. That's not bad either because the grass energy is relatively safe.
Right. But the turn 2 Gardevoir.
That's
We have
scary.
a scared Tapu Koko staring down a giant 230 HP Gardevoir
Oh, that's scary. Oh, man.
with an N coming down from Kyle.
Yeah, so Kyle kind of dominating state, although if Kyle can't get access to his Zorix, it might be kind of bad for him because that's how he kind of draws into his energy. That's his energy draw engine. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what he draws off of this end. And I think if you're Azul, you also want to get the Zorix as well.
Exactly. You can set up so much faster with them. They're just speed demons for the deck.
Yeah, it's a good trade. So they're both going to get 6 cards off of this. Can't see Kyle's hand. He does get his Zorix, so that's good.
He
Don't know
does
if he
have
has
the DCE.
Okay, so he does have the DC. He does need a fairy energy, though, for sure.
Trading,
he does have a fairy.
He does
Okay.
have the fairy. Trades away a Field Blower as well as a Tapu Lele, getting Zoroark after Zoroark after Zoroark.
He got the Zorix. He did it. So he's going to go ahead and put all 3 of those down. Going to do his third trade, getting rid of a Mallow. I think at this point you would probably just Secret Spraying, maybe just get some chip damage on.
Possibly attach that DC as
Possibly.
well.
It's a
but you don't want to
consideration.
overextend at this point.
Right.
He
So-
ends up going for another Tapu Lele down to get an possible Guzma here.
Yeah, he already played N for the turn, so I think that it would be interesting. I think that he's just seeing, hey, Azul might be playing a Parallel City soon.
Right.
So I want to have something in my hand that I can be able to respond to that with.
Ends up going for the Mallow, attaching the Float Stone to that Gardevoir, keeping it safe on the bench, bringing up a Zoroark with 2 energy via the double colorless, knocking out that Tapu Koko with a Rightus beating.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really good play from Kyle. Got the first knockout of the game, which I think is crucial in this matchup. Do see the Enhanced Hammer come down, Zora come down, and an End come down. All the cards came down right now. So Kyle's going to get 5, Azul's going to get 6. I think at this point, Azul will either want to see a way to attack with Golisopod this turn, or maybe even just attacking with Rightus beating at this point. I think it's a better idea to get out the Golisopod for attacking if you can, though, because that Gardevoir is just waiting on the bench ready to devour you.
Agreed. So. And it is worth noting that early hammer has really hindered Kyle in a way.
It really has, yeah. I mean, even though it was his first double colorless energy, it's kind of, he might have been relying on that, saying, hey, I'll have an attack for next turn. Well, not with Enhanced Hammer. So.
And now it's just stuck in the active unless we have a Guzma or some other way of getting it out.
Exactly.
His Float Stone's already on the Gardevoir, so that's not an option.
So we see Azul kind of looking through his hand, looking at some options and stuff like that.
Trading away a Guzma does get him that DCE.
Oh, beautiful. So it looks like he can do that. He could ride his beating for 100 this turn if he wants to.
Right.
Could put the other Wimpod down, I think I saw in his hand. I think that would be a pretty decent play, but it's just going to be content with the ride his beating for 100. So going into Kyle's turn, he has an Ultra Ball he's eyeing up. What do you get with this Ultra Ball? I mean, you have everything you need on your board. Maybe he's just thinning his deck out at this point?
Possibly, yes. Trade fodder, essentially.
Could be, yeah. Got rid of the Glade. Oh, boy. So he's going to go ahead and Ultra Ball. Probably going to... Oh, Mew EX.
Mew EX.
So he doesn't play Acerolas in his list from what I can tell, so he can't, maybe do any of those shenanigans or anything like that.
Right.
But, maybe he has some other shenanigans that'll have up his sleeve with that.
It's
just trade fodder. Okay.
It's just trade fodder. He has no use for it. It's not the greatest in this matchup for him.
Right. Yeah, I think him getting rid of that is really good too because he doesn't want to be potentially stuck on the bench, just having to put stuff down to be able to attack with Zork. So getting it out of the deck, just in that sense, makes it a not easy 2 prizes.
Right.
Yeah. So see Kyle kind of going through his hand again, kind of eyeing what he wants to do. Does he want to Guzma the Wimpod at this point is the really big question. Maybe attack into it with the Gardevoir. I think that's a good play.
I feel like that you are a psychic here. We do see that come up. He is forcing this Wimpod to take a knockout right now. And takes a lot of pressure off of him because there is no longer the chance of a fully functioning Golisopod coming up and wreaking havoc on him.
So we just saw the Secret Spring from Gardevoir, and then he attached to double colors for turn to that Zork, and just went ahead and knocked out that Wimpod. So that's kind of why I wanted to see the other Wimpod on the bench at that point, because now you don't have a Golisopod that can attack this turn. That's huge.
It is, but we do see an N come down, bringing Kyle's hand down to 4. Azul getting, it seems to be 6.
Yeah, but it looks like he's going to get 6. So I think that if you're Azul, you want to see another Zork. Like, you want 1 or 2 Zorks. You want to start trading everything away.
Right. And while N is still very key in causing disruption in decks, it doesn't cause as much disruption when it comes to a Zoroark deck, since you can just trade that 1 card away, get 2. Oh no, I can trade another one away and keep going.
Another one.
It's not as ideal as having, say, an Octillery or something like that. But it doesn't really slow the player down as much as it would in another deck.
Right, exactly. So looks like Azul's going to play an Evo Soda, so he's going to get another Zoroark out this turn, which is really good. Being able to have access to 2 trade abilities, I think, is going to be kind of crucial in this matchup.
To have a feeling his Golisopod was prized.
It might be, it very well could be. He does have the access to the puzzles, though, so that is something that he can keep in mind. So.
But that is just a sad little Wimpod sitting on the bench, waiting for
to get destroyed. Whether that's with Gardevoir's Infinite Force or even just Zork doing another Rightus beating eventually.
Exactly. And once again, that brings a lot of pressure off of Kyle.
Right. So it looks like gonna go ahead and trade away that Mallow.
You may begin.
I saw 1 puzzle. I couldn't tell if that was the 2nd puzzle in his hand. Gets rid of the Grass Energy. Seems fine.
There is a DCE in hand.
So he could. I don't see why you would. Well, I mean, he already attached the grass for the turn.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think he would probably be content to just go for another 100 on the Rightus beating. Just maybe if he can get another bench Pokemon down, go for 120, just so that it's a nice clean 2-hit KO.
Does have the double puzzle, Enhanced Hammer, as well as
potentially Evo Soda, but maybe not.
I'm not sure. You're
Yeah,
going for the
gonna
Evo
go for
Soda.
the Evo Soda. I think
All
that's a
right.
fine play,
Yeah.
just so you can get the third Zoroark out. There we go. Gonna Evo Soda. Get another Zoroark out. That seems fine. I like 3 Zoroarks.
Oh yeah.
I love trading. I love beating riotously.
On top of that, they're fantastic attackers. We do see that Enhanced Hammer come back, taking off that DCE on Kyle's active Zoroark.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be huge. So even though Azul's not going to get the knockout this turn, he's still going to put a lot of pressure on Kyle. And now he's to find an energy to boot.
Right. And that's also a lot of damage.
Yeah, absolutely. So going to get rid of that Bridget. Kind of realizes, I have a full bench. I don't need this card. So going to get rid of that. He's eyeing a Ralts that he might want to get rid of eventually. Looks like he's going to go ahead and do that.
Right. It looks like he does have a Cynthia in hand now.
And he has a singular puzzle from what I could tell. He has a Mallow as well. He could probably play that if he wants to get some puzzle shenanigans going.
And he does. Going through looking for puzzles. And possibly, let's see.
Maybe like a Max Potion or something. I could see a Max Potion play at this point just because that Zora could go down next turn, you know?
Or he is eyeing the possibility of a Choice Band or a DC. DC would allow him to get out of the active position.
Whereas instead of, burning the puzzles of time on stuff like that, you can just get it straight out of your deck, save the puzzles for later in the game.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So he's kind of deciding. I mean, based on his hand, he's got the Cynthia and all that.
He has options, many options.
So many options. Like, I don't know if you could say that there's a specifically wrong play. There's so many things that you could do at this point. So obviously there are optimal plays and such, but I think he's just trying to figure out what he thinks is good in this point in time going forward.
I did see the Puzzle of Time choice.
Okay. So he will be getting that, assuming that he's going to, trade and do all that. So
He does have 2 trades from what I can recall.
Yes.
He only used the 1.
So he's going to go ahead and trade, get those 2 cards he just got with Mallow. Looks like it was a fairy in a puzzle. So
Interesting play.
seems pretty good.
He ends up field blowing his own Floatstone off of his Gardevoir and going for
Trading card
Puzzle.
masters. That is time. Trading card masters.
So yeah,
That is
so
time.
he
kind of
end-
looking here. Puzzle of Time is going to get the double colorless energy in the Floatstone, double colorless onto that Gardevoir. Massive amounts. And the
Oh
Secret
my
Spring
goodness.
going to get that knockout there. Absolutely insane play from Kyle.
Fantastic. And to add insult to injury, we see the Parallel City come down, forcing
my
Azul's bench to stay at a
Oh.
measly 3.
Oh boy, so now if you're Azul, you're kind of thinking like, what do I do at this point? He's going to knock out my Zoroark if I put that up and try attacking with it.
Right. You need to Guzma.
Absolutely. If you don't Guzma this turn, then you're definitely not in a good position whatsoever.
You're going to get a beating, and it's definitely not going to be righteous.
Right.
But he does promote that.
So he does promote
Zoroark
that, yeah.
has 2 DC in hand. Field blowers away the Parallel, bringing out another Wimpod. Debating an attachment on the Zoroark, which he confirms. Not sure that was the play, but he ends up just going gung-ho and adding that Choice Band, going for a Lele to get his
I don't know what you
supporter.
even go for. with the
It looks
Lele
like
at
he
this
was
point.
going for the Cynthia.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I guess you could do that. Maybe hope that you hit an Enhanced Hammer or access to Enhanced Hammers through puzzles or something like that.
Right.
So it really would just depend at this point.
He goes for an N.
Okay.
Since he has 6 cards and Kyle has 6 prize cards and Kyle has 2 prize cards, we will see Azul draw 6, Kyle draw 2. And like I said earlier, it doesn't really matter too much with a Zoroark deck.
Right.
Kyle can easily trade these back up to a full hand. It does waste resources a bit, but it isn't too much of a hindrance, say, compared to playing a deck without these Zoroark.
Right. Exactly. So if you're Azul at this point, I don't know what you dig for. I mean, like I said, you can hope that you hit an Enhanced Hammer, but looking at his list,
he runs one.
played one, and I'm pretty sure it is already played.
He's
So-
played it twice and got it back with the puzzle that one
let's get
time.
the Glycopod. So actually, he could attack with the Glycopod this turn if he wanted to. Kind of his last-ditch effort. Hope that Kyle doesn't have an energy that he can attach and knock out the Gardevoir.
Right.
I think that's really his best play at this point.
But I almost want to say that Glycopod is a few turns too late.
Too late, right? Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that I mentioned. It just, you got to get those Wimpods down early.
You have
is your
to
biggest
exert
thing.
pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll go ahead and see. I wouldn't be surprised if he just discarded the double colorless energy to retreat this turn instead of trying to find a Field Blower, Floatstone, or something like that.
Right.
So I think he's just looking through Kyle's resources, trying to see what he's played, see what he can work with, and hopefully maybe he can pray that Kyle does not have an energy.
Right. We do
So
see
here we
that
go.
retreat into the Glaciopod.
So 120. Let's see what he has in hand. I saw a puzzle. Okay, the trade number 1.
Gets him an Evo Soda, which is not really needed right now.
Not really needed. Do you go for the Cynthia right now and then trade from there? I think that it might be a good play.
It could.
Could very well, although
His deck is quite
all
thin right
so
now.
it looks like game is done. So it looks like I think Kyle is going to be turn 0 at this point, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
So
Kyle has not passed, so he is turn 0 as time was called.
yep.
Going into time here, we see, before I go into that, we do see the Cynthia, but going into time, what needs to happen to clinch victory?
Well, I mean, Azul's not going to be able to take 6 prizes in 2 turns.
Right.
So
Kyle needs to do something.
Kyle needs to take a knockout here. He needs to get 1 more energy, I think, is his biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has 5 on there right now. Glycopod has 1. That's doing 180. You just need 1 more energy for the knockout.
And there it
you
is.
go. All right, and there you go. Kyle Sabelhaus takes this series 2-1 over Azul Garcia Griego.
Moving on
What a
to
fun match.
what a match. Moving on to 6.